The gold-plated pocket watch slipped from Karina James's trembling fingers as the shopkeeper's meaty hand clamped around her wrist, his voice booming through the crowded mercantile. "Thief! I've caught myself a bread thief." Karina's heart hammered against her ribs as the loaf she'd tucked beneath her threadbare shawl tumbled to the floor. The year was 1875, and stealing in Nevada City, Montana, was not taken lightly. Faces turned, conversations halted, and suddenly she was the center of unwanted attention in Donovan's general store. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the murmurs rippling through the shop. "My brothers and sisters haven't eaten in 2 days." Mr. Donovan's bushy eyebrows drew together in a scowl. "A sad story, don't pay my suppliers, girl. Sheriff Wilson will sort you out." At 22, Karina had already weathered more hardship than most twice her age. Since their parents' deaths from typhoid 6 months prior, she'd been struggling to keep her 4 young siblings fed in their small cabin on the outskirts of town. The drought had withered what little crops they'd planted, and the sewing work she took in barely covered the property taxes. "I'll pay for it." The deep voice cut through the tension like a knife. Heads turned toward the tall figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the bright Montana sunshine. Owen Garrett stepped into the store, dust from the trail still clinging to his dark denim pants and the worn leather of his boots. His presence commanded attention without effort, shoulders broad beneath a faded blue shirt, dark hair curling from beneath a wide-brimmed hat, and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Karina had seen him around town since his arrival 3 weeks ago. The new foreman at the Silver Creek Ranch was the subject of considerable gossip among the local women, but she'd been too consumed with survival to pay much attention. "And what business is it of yours, Garrett?" Mr. Donovan challenged, though his grip on Karina's wrist loosened slightly. Owen approached with the unhurried confidence of a man comfortable in his own skin. "No business at all," he said evenly. He reached into his pocket and placed several coins on the counter, far more than the cost of a single loaf. "But I'd like to pay for whatever the lady needs." Mr. Donovan's eyes narrowed, but the allure of money won out. He released Karina's wrist and scooped up the coins. "Take what you need," he muttered, turning away. Karina's cheeks burned with shame as she bent to retrieve the fallen loaf. "Thank you," she murmured, keeping her eyes downcast. "I'll find a way to repay you." "No need," Owen replied, his voice lower now that the spectacle had ended and other customers had returned to their shopping. "Though I wonder if 1 loaf is enough." She glanced up then, struck by the genuine concern in his expression. There was no pity there, just a straightforward question. "It will have to be," she answered, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. Owen studied her for a long moment. The hollow of her cheeks and the dark circles beneath her eyes told their own story. "Miss Karina James." "Miss James, I've just finished some business and was headed to Murphy's for a meal." He gestured toward the door. "I'd be obliged if you'd join me." Karina's first instinct was to refuse. Pride was sometimes all she had left. But the thought of her siblings, Emily at 12, the twins Joseph and Jacob at 8, and little Sarah just 5 waiting at home with empty stomachs made her reconsider. "I need to get back to my brothers and sisters," she said hesitantly. Owen nodded, seeming to understand her dilemma. "Then perhaps Murphy's can prepare something for all of you to take home." The kindness in the offer nearly undid her. "Why would you do that?" she asked, suspicion mingling with desperate hope. A small smile touched his lips. "Let's just say I know what it's like to go hungry." He tipped his hat slightly. "No strings attached, Miss James, just one neighbor helping another." 20 minutes later, Karina found herself seated across from Owen Garrett in Murphy's diner while Mrs. Murphy herself packaged an enormous meal of fried chicken, potatoes, green beans, and fresh bread to take home. The smell alone was enough to make Karina's stomach growl audibly. "Tell me about your siblings," Owen suggested as they waited, his manner casual enough that Karina began to relax slightly. "Emily's the oldest after me. She's good with numbers, better than her teacher, I suspect. The twins, they're a handful but hard workers. And Sarah." A genuine smile softened Karina's features. She collects wildflowers and tells stories about them, says they talk to her. Owen nodded. Sounds like you've got your hands full. Since our parents died, yes. She hadn't meant to mention that, but something about his direct gaze made evading the truth seem pointless. Both of them, typhoid. It swept through last winter. Karina's fingers twisted in her lap. Our neighbor, Mrs. Hollister, helped where she could, but she's nearly 80 herself. Owen was quiet for a moment. And you've been managing alone, the farm and the children. We have 10 acres. Most of it's gone fallow this year with the drought. I take in sewing, and sometimes I help at the boarding house with laundry. She lifted her chin slightly. We manage. Until today, he observed without judgment. Karina's shoulders slumped. Until today, she agreed. Mrs. Murphy approached with a large basket covered with a checkered cloth. Here you are, dear, enough for all those growing youngsters and then some. The aroma wafting from the basket made Karina light-headed. Thank you, Mrs. Murphy. Mr. Garrett, I don't know how to. Owen, he corrected. And like I said, no thanks needed. He stood, placing coins on the table. May I see you home? That basket looks heavy. Karina hesitated. She barely knew this man, but there was something reassuring in his calm demeanor and direct manner. Still, a woman alone had to be careful. You're welcome to come as far as the gate, she compromised, gathering her shawl. The children will be watching for me by now. The walk to the edge of town and beyond was filled with an unexpectedly comfortable conversation. Owen spoke of his years working cattle drives in Texas, his time in California during its gold rush days, and his recent position at Silver Creek. The owner's getting on in years, he explained as they walked the dusty road leading away from Nevada City. Needed someone to take over the day-to-day. It's good land, good cattle. You've traveled a lot, Karina observed, shifting the basket to her other arm. Despite her protest, Owen had insisted on carrying it most of the way. Too much, maybe, he replied. Might be time to put down roots. He glanced at her, then away. How much further, just around that bend, you can see the chimney from here. As they rounded the corner, the small cabin came into view. It was weathered but had once been well built, with a stone chimney and a front porch that sagged slightly on one side. A clothesline hung with faded garments stretched between two posts, and a small vegetable garden showed signs of careful tending despite the parched conditions. What caught Owen's attention, however, were the 4 children who burst from the cabin the moment Karina came into view. They raced down the path, their excited voices carrying on the afternoon air. Karina, you're back. Did you get bread? Who's that man? I'm hungry. The children skidded to a halt when they noticed Owen, suddenly shy in the presence of a stranger. Karina made the introductions, her voice warm with affection despite the obvious strain of their circumstances. This is Mr. Garrett, she explained. He's brought us dinner. Little Sarah, with a missing front tooth and braids that were coming undone, looked up at Owen with solemn green eyes the same shade as her sister's. All of us. Owen knelt to her level, his expression serious. All of you and Mrs. Murphy made enough for seconds. The twins, identical with sandy hair and freckles, exchanged glances of disbelief, while Emily, tall for 12 and clearly trying to seem grown up, gave a polite curtsy that she must have practiced from a book. Thank you, sir, she said formally. Won't you join us? Owen glanced at Karina, who appeared caught between embarrassment and amusement at her sister's bold invitation. Mr. Garrett probably has other obligations, Emily, Karina said gently, but Owen found himself reluctant to leave. There was something about this brave young woman and her brood that tugged at him. Actually, I'm free as a tumbleweed this evening, he said, if it wouldn't be imposing. The children's cheers made the decision final. Minutes later, Owen found himself at the scrubbed wooden table inside the cabin as Karina distributed the feast. The interior was spare but meticulously clean, with handmade curtains at the windows and carefully mended quilts on the beds visible through an open door. The meal was a revelation not for the food itself, which was simple fare, but for the joy that permeated the humble room. The children's delight in each bite, their eager stories tumbling over one another, and Karina's gradual relaxation as hunger was sated transformed the simple cabin. Owen found himself drawn into their world, answering endless questions about cattle and horses, demonstrating how to twirl a lasso with a piece of rope Jacob produced, and listening to Sarah's earnest descriptions of the flowers in her collection. As twilight deepened, Karina lit the oil lamps and began to gather the dishes. "Time for washing up in bed," she announced, met with the expected chorus of protests. "Mr. Garrett hasn't told us about the outlaws yet," Joseph objected, "or the gold mine," Jacob added. Owen smiled. "Those are tales for another day, perhaps." A flicker of something disappointment crossed Karina's face, there and gone so quickly he might have imagined it. She shepherded the children through their evening routine with practiced efficiency, and Owen took the opportunity to step outside onto the porch. The Montana evening was cool, stars beginning to pepper the vast sky. He could see why someone would fight to keep such a place, even against impossible odds. The door opened behind him and Karina stepped out, wrapping her shawl around her shoulders. "They're settling down," she said softly, "though I suspect they'll talk about this evening for weeks." Owen leaned against the porch railing. "They're good kids, you've done well by them." Karina joined him, her gaze on the distant mountains. "I do what I can, but it's not enough." The admission seemed to cost her. "Today wasn't. I've never stolen before." "I believe you." They stood in silence for a moment, the chirp of crickets filling the darkness. "Miss James, Karina, I have a proposition for you," Owen said finally. Her body tensed beside him and he hurried to continue. "Not that kind, I promise." She relaxed marginally. "What sort of proposition then?" "Silver Creek Ranch needs a housekeeper. The owner, Mr. Collins, is elderly and his previous housekeeper retired to live with her daughter in Oregon. The position comes with living quarters, a small house behind the main one, but solid, 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, good well water." Karina turned to face him, her expression guarded in the dim light spilling from the cabin windows. "And why would you offer this to me? You know nothing about my housekeeping skills." Owen gestured toward the neat cabin. "I can see evidence of them right here. Besides, Mr. Collins isn't particular about fancy cooking. He needs someone reliable who can keep things in order, prepare simple meals, and perhaps read to him occasionally. His eyesight isn't what it was. The children would be welcome. There's a school 3 miles from the ranch, and one of the hands could drive them in the wagon on school days." He paused. "The pay is $30 a month, plus room and board for all of you." Karina's intake of breath told him she recognized the generosity of the offer. It was more than fair, it was a lifeline. "What about this place?" she asked, looking back at the cabin. "Keep it," Owen suggested. "It's your family home. Maybe when things improve, you could rent it out for additional income, or return if the position doesn't suit you." Karina was silent, and Owen could almost see the thoughts racing behind her eyes, weighing options, calculating risks, considering what was best for her siblings. "Why are you doing this?" she asked finally, the question that had been hovering between them all evening. Owen looked out at the night sky. "When I was 10, my father died in a mining accident. My mother tried to keep our farm going, but it was too much. We lost everything. A rancher took us in, gave my mother work as a housekeeper, taught me about cattle, if not for him." He shook his head. "Sometimes people need a helping hand, not charity, just a fair chance." Karina studied him in the darkness. "I'd need to see the place first, talk to Mr. Collins myself, of course. And if it doesn't work out, you'd be free to leave any time," he assured her. "This isn't indentured servitude, Karina. It's an honest job offer." A breeze rustled through the aspens near the cabin, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote called to its pack. Karina drew her shawl tighter. "I'll think about it tonight," she said finally, "and give you my answer tomorrow." Owen nodded, respecting her caution. "I'll come by in the morning then, around 10. That would be fine." She hesitated, then added softly, "Thank you, not just for the food or the offer, for not judging me today." "We've all had moments we're not proud of," Owen replied. "It's what we do after that counts." As he rode back to town in the gathering darkness, Owen wondered at the strange twist of fate that had brought him to Donovan's store at precisely that moment. He hadn't planned to go there today at all, had changed his mind on a whim. Now he found himself hoping fervently that Karina James would accept the position at Silver Creek. There was something about her, a quiet strength, a fierce devotion to her family that resonated with him. Montana had been just another stop in his wandering life, but for the first time in years, Owen felt a peculiar reluctance to move on. Dawn broke clear and cool over the James cabin. Karina had been awake for hours, having slept fitfully through a night filled with weighing options and possibilities. The children still slumbered, exhausted from the excitement and full bellies of the evening before. She moved quietly through the cabin, stoking the fire in the stone hearth and putting water on to boil for coffee, a luxury she allowed herself only occasionally, but today seemed to warrant it. Her mind kept returning to Owen Garrett's offer as she went about her morning routine. $30 a month plus room and board. It was more than she could hope to earn through sewing and laundry, even working from dawn until midnight. The children could attend school regularly instead of helping with chores. They would have enough to eat, a secure roof over their heads. But it meant leaving the only home the younger ones had known. It meant trusting a man she'd just met, working for another she'd never met at all. It meant admitting she couldn't manage on her own, despite her fierce determination to do so these past 6 months. Karina. Emily's voice came softly from the doorway of the small room she shared with Sarah. Her hair was tousled from sleep, her eyes still heavy-lidded. "You're up early," Karina smiled at her sister. At 12, Emily was already showing signs of the beauty she would become, with their mother's delicate features and their father's thoughtful eyes. "Just thinking, Em, come sit with me." Emily joined her at the rough-hewn table, accepting a cup of weak coffee liberally diluted with milk. "About Mr. Garrett's offer," Karina's eyebrows rose. "You were listening." A slight blush colored Emily's cheeks, not intentionally, but the walls are thin and I was getting water for Sarah. "What do you think of it?" Emily considered this with a seriousness that sometimes made Karina's heart ache. Children shouldn't have to be so grown up so soon. "I think it sounds like a good opportunity," she said finally, "and Mr. Garrett seems nice." "Not like Mr. Holloway, who's always looking at you that way when we deliver his shirts." Karina suppressed a grimace. Theodore Holloway, the bank manager, was indeed too free with his gaze when she brought his laundered shirts each Friday. "Mr. Garrett was very kind yesterday." "Do you think he likes you?" Emily asked with sudden girlish interest, a reminder that despite her maturity she was still very much a child. "Emily, he was being charitable, that's all." "I don't think so," her sister said with surprising conviction. "He looked at you the way Pa used to look at Ma." Karina felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "That's nonsense. He's just a decent man who recognized we're having a hard time." Before Emily could respond, the twins burst from their small bedroom, already arguing about something incomprehensible. And Sarah followed moments later, clutching the rag doll Karina had made her for Christmas. The morning dissolved into the usual chaos of breakfast preparation, settling disputes, and assigning chores. By the time Karina had a moment to herself again, it was nearly 9, and her decisions still weighed heavily. "Children," she called, gathering them in the main room. "I need to discuss something important with you." They gathered around, sensing her serious tone. Even the twins quieted their perpetual motion. "Mr. Garrett has offered me a position as housekeeper at Silver Creek Ranch," she explained, choosing her words carefully. "It would mean moving there, all of us. You would have your own rooms, regular meals, and be able to attend school properly." "Would we have horses?" Jacob asked immediately. "It's a cattle ranch, silly," Joseph countered. "Of course there are horses." "I don't want to leave my flowers," Sarah said, her lower lip trembling. Emily, as always, considered the practical aspects. "What about our house and Pa and Ma's graves?" Karina took Sarah onto her lap. "We would keep our house, Em, and we would visit Ma and Pa whenever we wanted." "It's not so very far," she stroked Sarah's hair, "and you could plant new flowers at the ranch, maybe even have a proper garden." "Will Mr. Garrett be there?" Sarah asked, her childish intuition surprisingly astute. "Yes, he's the foreman. He manages the ranch for the owner, Mr. Collins." "I like him," Sarah declared. "He didn't eat the last biscuit even though he wanted it." Karina smiled, remembering how Owen had ensured each child had their fill before taking his own portion. That was considerate of him, wasn't it? Is this because of the bread? Emily asked quietly. Because you had to. Take it. The shame of that moment in the store flooded back. Karina had never wanted her siblings to know, had hoped to shield them from the depths of their predicament, but Emily was too observant, too quick to make connections. Partly, Karina admitted. But mostly because it's a good opportunity for all of us. Still, I want to know how you all feel about it. Jacob and Joseph were enthusiastically in favor, already imagining adventures with cowboys and cattle. Sarah seemed content once assured her doll and flower collection could accompany her. Emily remained thoughtful. I think we should go, she said finally, but promise we'll come back sometimes. To see Ma and Pa, I promise, Karina said, gathering her siblings into a group embrace. We'll always be a family, no matter where we live. When Owen arrived precisely at 10 o'clock, Karina was waiting on the porch. The children had been instructed to tidy their belongings while she spoke with him, though she could see their curious faces peeking through the window. Owen dismounted from his chestnut gelding with the easy grace of a man who'd spent most of his life on horseback. He looked different today, freshly shaved, his dark hair neatly combed, wearing a clean blue shirt under his leather vest. Not dressed up exactly, but deliberately presentable. Good morning, he greeted, removing his hat. I hope you slept well. Well enough, Karina replied. I've been considering your offer. Owen nodded, his expression giving nothing away, and I'd like to accept conditionally. Karina straightened her shoulders. I need to see the ranch first, meet Mr. Collins, and I want a written agreement about the terms of employment. If Owen was surprised by her businesslike approach, he didn't show it. That's perfectly reasonable. We can ride out today if you'd like. Mr. Collins will be expecting us. You told him about me already. A slight smile touched Owen's lips. I mentioned I might have found a solution to his housekeeper problem. He's eager to meet you. Karina glanced back at the cabin, where 4 faces were now plainly visible at the window. The children, bring them along, Owen suggested. They should see their potential new home too. I brought the wagon from town for that purpose. Indeed, a wagon stood on the road beyond the gate, a detail Karina had overlooked in her focus on Owen himself. The thoughtfulness of the gesture saving the children a long walk or the indignity of crowding onto a single horse spoke volumes. Give us 30 minutes to prepare, she said, a decision crystallizing within her. Something about Owen Garrett inspired trust, despite her natural caution. We'll be ready then. The ride to Silver Creek Ranch took just over an hour. Owen drove the wagon with Karina beside him on the seat, the children arranged in the back amid a surprising number of supplies. Mr. Collins thought you might appreciate some provisions, Owen explained when Karina questioned the sacks of flour, sugar, coffee, and other staples stowed in the wagon. Regardless of your decision today. The gesture brought an unexpected lump to Karina's throat. It had been a long time since anyone had shown such consideration for her family's welfare without expecting something in return. As they traveled, Owen pointed out landmarks and boundaries, giving her a sense of the area. Silver Creek itself was a substantial waterway that cut through the eastern portion of the ranch, providing reliable water even in drought years. The valley it carved was verdant compared to the surrounding countryside, dotted with cottonwoods and willows. The main house is just ahead, Owen said as they crested a small rise, and that's where you and the children would stay. He pointed to a smaller but well-maintained structure about 50 yards behind the main house. Karina's breath caught as the buildings came into full view. The main house was impressive 2 stories of solid construction with a wide porch wrapping around the front, painted white with dark green trim. The smaller house, while modest, appeared sturdy and welcoming, with curtained windows and a small garden plot to one side. It's lovely, she murmured, unable to hide her reaction. Owen smiled, clearly pleased. Wait until you see inside. The wagon had barely rolled to a stop when the front door of the main house opened. An elderly man emerged, leaning on a carved walking stick. His white hair and beard were neatly trimmed, his clothes quality but well worn. "So these are our visitors," he called, his voice surprisingly strong for his apparent age. "Well, don't just sit there, Owen. Help the lady down and bring them in." Owen chuckled as he set the brake and came around to offer Karina his hand. "Mr. Collins isn't one to stand on ceremony," he murmured, "but his bark is worse than his bite." The children tumbled from the wagon, suddenly shy in the presence of the imposing old man and the grand house. Even the twins were subdued as Owen made the introductions. "Miss James, children, this is Elias Collins, owner of Silver Creek Ranch. Mr. Collins, may I present Miss Karina James and her siblings Emily, Joseph, Jacob, and Sarah." Mr. Collins studied them with keen blue eyes that belied his 70-plus years. "Good stock," he pronounced after a moment, as if they were prize cattle. "Strong bones, good posture." His gaze settled on Karina. "You keep a neat household, I expect." "I do, sir," Karina replied, refusing to be intimidated. "Can cook." "Yes, sir. Nothing fancy but wholesome. Read aloud without mumbling." "I was the best reader in my class at school." "Ever run a large household?" "No, sir, but I learn quickly." Mr. Collins grunted, then unexpectedly winked at Sarah, who had been studying him with solemn curiosity. "You remind me of my granddaughter," he told her. "She's in San Francisco now, too far to visit an old man." Sarah, usually the shyest with strangers, stepped forward. "Do you like flowers, Mr. Collins?" "Indeed I do, young lady. Have a garden full of them around back that's gone to seed since Mrs. Petersham left. No one to tend it properly." "I could help," Sarah offered earnestly. "I'm very good with flowers. They talk to me." "Do they now?" The old man's face softened. "Well, I'd be interested to hear what they have to say." He glanced at Owen, then back to Karina. "Why don't you all come inside? Mrs. Petersham left some molasses cookies in the jar before she departed, and they won't eat themselves." The tour of both houses, accompanied by cookies and milk for the children and coffee for the adults, confirmed what Karina had suspected from her first glimpse. Silver Creek Ranch offered a comfort and security they hadn't known since before their parents' deaths. The main house was spacious and well-appointed, with a large kitchen, formal dining room, library, and several bedrooms upstairs. Mr. Collins explained that he spent most of his time in the library or on the covered porch these days, leaving the running of the ranch to Owen and the hands. "Don't have the legs for riding anymore," he explained, "but I still keep the books and make the decisions. Owen executes them." The housekeeper's cottage, as Mr. Collins called it, exceeded Karina's expectations. 3 proper bedrooms, a cozy sitting room with a stone fireplace, a kitchen with a good stove and pump sink, and even a small washroom with a copper tub. It was simply furnished but immaculately clean. Mrs. Petersham was here for 18 years, Mr. Collins told her. Only left because her daughter's husband passed and she was needed there. The place has been standing empty for 3 months now, and I'm tired of cold meals and wrinkled shirts. While the children explored the cottage with Owen, Mr. Collins drew Karina aside. "Owen tells me you've had a rough go of it," he said bluntly. "Parents gone, trying to keep the family together." Karina nodded, unsure how much Owen had shared about yesterday's incident at the store. "I respect that," the old man continued. "Family matters, always has." He fixed her with those penetrating blue eyes. "I'll be straight with you, Miss James. I'm not an easy man to work for. I'm particular about my food. I want my house kept just so, and I expect to be read to for an hour each evening, newspapers, correspondence, sometimes a novel if the mood strikes." "I understand, sir." "But," he continued, "I'm fair. $30 monthly, paid on time, Sundays off. The cottage and provisions for your family included, and if you stay a full year, a bonus of $50 at Christmas." Karina's eyes widened. Such terms were more than generous. They were nearly unheard of for a housekeeper's position. "Why so much?" she asked before she could stop herself. Mr. Collins gave a rusty laugh. "Because good help is worth it, Miss James, and because I've been where you are. Orphaned at 14, raised my younger sisters by taking whatever work I could find." His expression grew distant. "Someone gave me a chance once, changed everything." He refocused on her. "Owen says you're honest despite yesterday's lapse, says you've got grit." That's what I need, not some delicate flower who'll wilt when things get difficult. And when would you want me to start? Karina asked, her decision already made, though she felt she should at least appear to be considering. Tomorrow's Sunday. Take the day to gather your things, say goodbye to neighbors. Start Monday morning. Mr. Collins extended his hand, weathered and spotted with age but still strong. Do we have an agreement, Miss James? Karina took his hand, her grip firm. We do, Mr. Collins, and you won't regret it. A genuine smile transformed the old man's face. I suspect not, young lady, I suspect not. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Sunday was spent packing their few belongings, visiting their parents' graves to explain their temporary departure, and saying goodbye to Mrs. Hollister, who cried a little but declared it the Lord's providence that such an opportunity had arisen. Monday morning found Karina rising before dawn to begin her new duties. Owen arrived with the wagon as promised, helping them transport their trunks and boxes to the cottage. By mid-morning, she was in Mr. Collins' kitchen preparing a proper meal while the children explored their new surroundings under Emily's watchful eye. The transition was not without challenges. Mr. Collins was indeed particular. His eggs had to be cooked just so, his coffee strong but not bitter, his shirts starched in a specific way. But he was also patient with Karina's learning curve and genuinely kind to the children. Joseph and Jacob quickly became fascinated with the ranch operations, trailing after the Cowboys whenever allowed and returning with endless questions and stories. Emily discovered the library and Mr. Collins' collection of books, many of which she'd never had access to before. Sarah, true to her word, began helping tend the flower garden, spending hours with her hands in the soil while chattering to the plants. As for Karina, she threw herself into her new responsibilities with determination. The work was hard but satisfying. For the first time in months, she went to bed each night with the security of knowing her siblings were well fed, safe, and thriving. Owen Garrett remained a constant presence, though his duties often took him to distant parts of the ranch. He made a point of checking on them daily, sometimes bringing small gifts: a ribbon for Sarah's hair, a pocket knife for the twins to share, a book of poetry Emily had mentioned wanting to read. For Karina, there were wildflowers gathered during his rides, fresh berries found along the creek, once even a length of pretty blue fabric from town that matched her eyes. These gestures, small but thoughtful, created a warmth in Karina that she tried to ignore. A woman in her position couldn't afford romantic notions, especially about her employer's foreman. Yet she found herself looking forward to his visits, enjoying his quiet conversation in the evenings after the children were abed and Mr. Collins had retired. 2 weeks after their arrival, Karina was kneading bread dough in the main house kitchen when Owen appeared in the doorway, his hat in his hands. "Good morning," he greeted. "That looks promising." Karina smiled, blowing a strand of hair from her face. Mr. Collins mentioned he missed fresh bread. Mrs. Petersham left her recipe book, thankfully. Owen stepped into the kitchen, the morning sunlight catching the auburn highlights in his dark hair. "You've settled in well." "Mr. Collins says you're the best thing that's happened to the place in years." A pleased flush warmed Karina's cheeks as she continued working the dough. "He's being kind. I'm still learning." "The children seem happy too," Owen observed, leaning against the counter. "The twins are pestering Rodriguez to teach them to rope cattle, and I saw Emily reading to Mr. Collins yesterday on the porch. Sarah's garden is coming along nicely." "They're resilient," Karina said, pride evident in her voice, "and grateful for this opportunity. As am I." Owen watched her hands working the dough with practiced movements. "I was wondering if you might like to see more of the ranch sometime. There's a spot by the creek, about 2 miles east a stand of old cottonwoods. Good place for a picnic, perhaps. You and the children, I mean," he added hastily. Karina looked up, catching an unusual uncertainty in his expression. "That sounds lovely. Sunday afternoon, perhaps, after church. Perfect." Owen seemed about to say more when hoofbeats sounded outside, followed by a cowboy's call that he was needed. "Duty calls," he said with a rueful smile. "Until Sunday, then." As he left, Karina realized she was smiling at the empty doorway and forced herself to focus on the bread. It wouldn't do to let her thoughts wander in that direction. Owen Garrett was just being neighborly, ensuring the new housekeeper and her family were settling in. Nothing more. Yet as the week progressed, Karina found herself looking forward to Sunday with increasing anticipation. She prepared a special picnic basket, using some of her first wages to purchase treats from the mercantile when a ranch hand drove her to town for supplies. The children were equally excited, especially when Owen mentioned there might be fishing in the creek for those interested. Sunday dawned clear and warm. After church services in Nevada City, where the townsfolk had regarded the James family with new respect upon learning of their position at Silver Creek, they returned to the ranch to change into casual clothes and collect their picnic basket. Owen arrived with a wagon hitched to two gentle mares. He had changed as well, wearing a clean shirt with the sleeves rolled up against the summer heat. The sight of his tanned forearms and the way his hair curled slightly at his collar sent an unexpected flutter through Karina's midsection. The spot Owen had chosen lived up to his description. Massive cottonwoods provided dappled shade along the banks of Silver Creek, which burbled merrily over smooth stones. Wildflowers dotted the grassy clearing, immediately drawing Sarah's attention while the twins raced to the water's edge to look for fish. "It's beautiful," Karina said as Owen helped her down from the wagon. His hands lingered at her waist a moment longer than necessary, and she felt a jolt of awareness at the contact. "I thought you might like it," he replied, his voice lower than usual. "Found it my first week here. Reminded me of a place I knew as a boy." Emily, ever observant, gave Karina a knowing look before tactfully steering Sarah toward a particularly vibrant patch of flowers, calling to the twins to help spread the picnic blanket. Left momentarily alone with Owen, Karina felt suddenly self-conscious. She smoothed her skirt, a simple blue cotton that had been carefully washed and pressed for the occasion. "Thank you for suggesting this. The children needed a day of fun." "And what about you?" Owen asked, his gaze steady on her face. "What do you need, Karina?" The directness of the question caught her off guard. I have everything I need now. The children are safe, well-fed, getting an education." "That's what your family needs," Owen persisted gently. "I'm asking about you, just you." Karina looked away, unaccustomed to considering her own wants separate from her responsibilities. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "It's been so long since I thought about that." Owen nodded as if her answer made perfect sense. "Well, perhaps today you can begin to figure it out." He gestured toward the creek. "Shall we join them before the twins manage to fall in?" The afternoon unfolded like something from a dream. The picnic was a cheerful affair, with even Emily relaxing into childish laughter as Owen told stories of cattle drives and the characters he'd met in his travels. After eating, he produced fishing lines for the twins, who squealed with delight when they each caught a small trout under his patient guidance. Sarah collected flowers with Karina's help, weaving them into crowns for everyone, solemnly placing one atop Owen's hat to his apparent pleasure. Emily discovered a perfect climbing tree and persuaded Owen to help her reach the lower branches, from which she proudly surveyed their picnic site like a queen from her throne. As the afternoon waned, the children's energy finally began to flag. The twins sprawled on the blanket for a nap, while Sarah curled up with her head in Karina's lap, her eyelids growing heavy as her sister stroked her hair. Emily had brought a book and settled against a tree trunk, though Karina noticed her attention seemed divided between the pages and watching Owen, who was skipping stones across a calm pool in the creek. "He likes you," Emily whispered when Karina caught her staring. "Really likes you." "Hush," Karina chided gently, though she couldn't help glancing toward Owen herself. "He's just being kind." Emily rolled her eyes with the supreme confidence of a 12-year-old. "That's not kindness, that's something else entirely." Before Karina could respond, Owen approached, gesturing toward a path that curved alongside the creek. "Would you like to see something special? It's just a short walk. Emily can watch the little ones if they're sleeping." Emily immediately sat up straighter. "I'll take good care of them," she volunteered. Sarah's almost asleep anyway, and the twins won't wake for at least an hour after all that running around. Karina hesitated, torn between propriety and curiosity. I don't know. We'll stay within sight of the clearing, Owen assured her, seeming to understand her concern. And we won't be gone long. Go on, Emily urged, her expression far too knowing for Karina's comfort. I'm nearly 13. I can manage for 15 minutes. Reluctantly, Karina transferred Sarah's drowsy form to a folded blanket and rose to follow Owen. The path was narrow, forcing them to walk single file at first, but soon widened enough to allow them to walk side by side. True to his word, they remained within view of the picnic site, though the curve of the creek created a sense of privacy. Just around this bend, Owen said, offering his hand to help her over a fallen log. Karina gasped as they rounded the corner. A small waterfall, perhaps 6 feet high, cascaded over moss-covered rocks into a crystal-clear pool. The late afternoon sun created a rainbow in the spray, and butterflies danced among wildflowers that grew right to the water's edge. Oh, Owen, she breathed, forgetting formality in her delight. It's magical, he smiled, clearly pleased by her reaction. I found it by accident, tracking a stray calf, thought it might be the sort of place you'd appreciate. It's perfect. Karina moved closer to the edge of the pool, captivated by the play of light on water. Thank you for showing me. Owen came to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Karina, he began, his voice taking on a serious note that made her turn to face him. These past weeks, watching you with your siblings, seeing how you've taken on your role at the ranch. I've come to admire you greatly. Karina's heart began to beat faster, but caution made her deflect the compliment. I'm just doing what needs to be done. No, Owen said firmly. Many would have given up, sent the children to relatives or orphanages. You fought to keep your family together at great personal cost. His hand came up to gently brush a strand of hair from her face. Your strength, your kindness, your determination, they're remarkable. Karina stood frozen, acutely aware of his proximity, of the warmth in his hazel eyes, of her own response to his touch. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't need to say anything, Owen replied, his hand dropping reluctantly back to his side. I just wanted you to know that you're noticed, appreciated, not just for what you do, but for who you are. Something shifted between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing since that first day in Donovan's store. Karina found herself unable to look away from his face, from the earnest expression that spoke of emotions he wasn't fully expressing in words. Owen, she began, not entirely sure what she intended to say. A shout from the direction of their picnic site shattered the moment. Karina. Mr. Garrett, Emily's voice carried clearly, tinged with alarm. The twins are gone, fear lanced through Karina's heart as she and Owen exchanged a quick glance before hurrying back along the path. They found Emily standing anxiously by the blanket where Sarah still slept, her book abandoned on the ground. I only looked away for a minute to get water from the canteen, Emily explained, her voice tight with worry. When I looked back, they were gone. I've called for them, but they don't answer. Owen immediately took charge. Which direction were they headed when you last saw them? Emily pointed upstream. They were talking about finding bigger fish. They can't have gone far, Owen said reassuringly, though his expression was serious. Emily, stay here with Sarah. Karina and I will find them. Karina was already moving in the direction Emily had indicated, fear making her voice sharper than intended. Joseph, Jacob, answer me right now. Owen caught up to her in a few strides. They'll be all right, he said, though she could hear the concern beneath his calm tone. The creek isn't deep here, and they're good swimmers from what I've seen. They hurried along the bank, calling the boys' names, scanning the water and surrounding brush for any sign of the 8-year-olds. After 10 minutes that felt like hours, Karina was nearly frantic. There. Owen suddenly pointed toward a bend in the creek about 50 yards ahead. A small figure in a blue shirt was visible, waving frantically. They broke into a run, Karina's skirts hampering her pace until she hitched them up without regard for modesty. As they drew closer, she could see it was Joseph, standing on a small island in the middle of the creek. Jacob stuck, he shouted when they were within earshot. The log moved. Karina's blood ran cold as she spotted the second twin. Jacob was clinging to a fallen tree that bridged part of the creek, his legs dangling in the water which ran swifter here than at their picnic spot. The log had apparently shifted when the boys tried to use it as a bridge to the island, and now Jacob was caught, afraid to let go but unable to pull himself up. Without hesitation, Owen stripped off his boots and waded into the creek, which reached mid-thigh at its deepest point. "Hold on, Jacob," he called. "I'm coming to get you." Karina stood frozen on the bank, heart in her throat as Owen carefully made his way to the trapped boy. The current pulled at him, stronger than it appeared from shore, but he moved with deliberate steps, testing each foothold before committing his weight. "That's it," Owen encouraged as he reached Jacob. "I've got you now. Let go of the log and put your arms around my neck." Jacob looked terrified but obeyed, releasing his death grip on the rough bark and wrapping his arms around Owen's shoulders. With the boy securely in his grasp, Owen turned to make his way back to shore, moving even more cautiously under the additional weight. "Joseph, stay where you are," he called to the other twin. "I'll come back for you once Jacob is safe." Karina waded in a few steps, heedless of her sodden skirts, reaching out as Owen approached the bank with her brother. The moment Jacob was within reach, she pulled him into a fierce embrace, checking him for injuries while simultaneously scolding and comforting him. Owen didn't pause, immediately turning back to retrieve Joseph from the island. The second rescue went more smoothly, and minutes later both soaking wet boys stood on the bank, alternately apologizing and trying to explain their adventure. "We just wanted to see if there were bigger fish," Joseph said, his teeth chattering despite the warm day. "And we found the island, but then the log moved when Jacob was crossing." "I was scared," Jacob admitted, clinging to Karina's skirt, "but Mr. Garrett saved me." Karina looked up at Owen, who stood dripping on the bank, his shirt plastered to his chest, hair hanging in wet strands around his face. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't know what I would have done if, but nothing happened," Owen interrupted gently, kneeling to be at eye level with the twins. "You both gave us quite a scare, though. Wandering off without telling anyone was dangerous." The boys hung their heads, genuinely contrite. "We're sorry," they said in unison. "Let's get back to Emily and Sarah," Karina suggested, still shaken, "and then straight home for dry clothes before you catch your deaths." The walk back to their picnic site was subdued, the twins unusually quiet in the aftermath of their mishap. Emily's relief at seeing her brothers safe quickly gave way to indignation at their recklessness, while Sarah, who had slept through the entire episode, was confused by the sudden end to their outing. "But I haven't shown Mr. Garrett my special flower yet," she protested as they packed up the remains of their picnic. "Another time, sweetheart," Karina promised, helping her gather the now wilting flower crowns. "The boys need to get into dry clothes." Owen, who had squeezed as much water as possible from his clothes but remained damp, loaded their belongings into the wagon with efficient movements. "We'll come back," he assured Sarah. "The flowers will wait for you." The ride back to the ranch was swift, Owen pushing the horses a bit faster than their outward journey. By the time they reached the cottage, the twins were shivering despite the warm evening, and Karina was worried about the possibility of fever. "Into the bath with both of you," she directed as Emily helped her heat water, "and then straight to bed." Owen carried in the picnic basket and remaining supplies, then hovered uncertainly in the doorway. "Will they be all right?" Karina nodded, the day's events catching up with her now that they were safely home. "Yes, thanks to you. If you hadn't been there, but I was," Owen interrupted gently, "and they're fine. Just a scare and a valuable lesson learned." He glanced down at his own still damp clothing. "I should change and check on the evening feeding. Mr. Collins will be wondering what happened to us all." "Of course." Karina suddenly realized how bedraggled she must look herself, with mud-stained skirts and hair escaping its pins from her run along the creek bank. "Thank you again, Owen. For everything today, the picnic, the waterfall, and especially for saving Jacob." Something unspoken passed between them, a continuation of the moment that had been interrupted by the twins' disappearance. Owen's gaze lingered on her face, warm with an emotion Karina was afraid to name. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said finally, his voice low. "Good night, Karina." As she closed the door behind him, Karina leaned against it for a moment, her heart racing in a way that had nothing to do with the afternoon's scare. Emily appeared from the bedroom where the twins were changing, her expression knowing. "He likes you," she said again, with the air of someone stating an obvious fact. "And you like him too." This time, Karina didn't contradict her. The following weeks brought a subtle but unmistakable shift in Karina and Owen's relationship. Their interactions, always friendly, took on a new dimension, lingering glances, conversations that continued long after their ostensible purpose had ended, small touches that sent awareness skittering through Karina's veins. Mr. Collins, despite his failing eyesight, seemed to notice the change. "Young Garrett's been spending a lot of time at the main house lately," he observed one evening as Karina brought his after-dinner coffee. "Can't recall him having such an interest in the library before you arrived." Karina felt her cheeks warm. "He's been helping Joseph and Jacob with their reading," she said, which was true, if not the complete reason for Owen's frequent visits. "MMHMM," the old man hummed skeptically. "And I suppose he discusses cattle breeding with you until 9 o'clock just to pass the time, Mr. Collins." Karina protested, embarrassed by his directness. The old rancher chuckled. "Don't mind me, Miss James, just an old man's observations." His expression softened. "He's a good man, Owen is, best foreman I've had in 40 years of ranching. Honest, hardworking, treats the men fair and the animals better." Karina busied herself arranging his pillows. "Yes, he's been very kind to us all." "Kind indeed," Mr. Collins snorted. "Girl, that man looks at you like you hung the moon and stars, ain't just kindness driving him." Before Karina could formulate a response, a knock sounded at the front door. "That'll be him now," Mr. Collins said with unconcealed amusement. "Right on time." Sure enough, Owen stood on the porch, hat in hand. "Evening, Karina, Mr. Collins in the library." "Yes, with his coffee," Karina replied, acutely aware of the old man's comments. "Was there something you needed to discuss with him?" Owen hesitated. "Actually, I was hoping to speak with you if you have a moment." Karina nodded, stepping onto the porch and pulling the door partially closed behind her. The summer evening was pleasant, fireflies beginning to flicker in the gathering dusk. "Is everything all right?" she asked, concerned by his serious expression. "Everything's fine," Owen assured her. "Better than fine, actually. I've just had some news I wanted to share with you." He drew a deep breath. "Mr. Collins has offered me a partnership in the ranch." Karina's eyes widened. "Owen, that's wonderful. Congratulations." "Thank you." His smile was warm. "It means I'll be staying on permanently, taking over more responsibilities as Mr. Collins steps back." "He thinks very highly of you," Karina said. "He was just telling me what a good foreman you are." "Was he now?" Owen looked amused. "Did he happen to mention anything else?" Karina looked away, unable to meet his knowing gaze. "He may have made some observations about your frequent visits to the main house." Owen chuckled. The old man doesn't miss much. His expression grew serious again. "Karina, there's another reason I wanted to tell you about the partnership. It changes things for me, gives me stability, a future." He took a step closer. "A future I've been hoping might include you." Karina's heart seemed to stop, then race ahead like a runaway horse. "Owen, I know it's soon," he continued quickly. "We've only known each other a few months. And you have the children to consider. I understand if you need time, but I wanted you to know that my intentions are serious, that what I feel for you is real." The directness of his declaration left Karina momentarily speechless. Since their parents' deaths, she had put aside any thoughts of her own future, focusing entirely on survival and keeping her siblings together. The possibility of love, of building a life with someone, had seemed as distant as the stars. Yet here was Owen Garrett, kind, steadfast Owen, who had seen her at her lowest moment and offered not pity but respect, who had saved her brother without hesitation, who looked at her as though she were something precious. "I don't know what to say," she admitted finally. Owen smiled gently. You don't have to say anything right now, just think about it. He reached out slowly, as if giving her time to withdraw, and took her hand in his. His palm was warm and calloused from work, enveloping her smaller hand completely. I'm not going anywhere, Karina. Take all the time you need. The touch of his hand seemed to unlock something within her, a longing she had suppressed for too long, a yearning for connection that went beyond her role as sister and guardian. Before she could overthink it, Karina stepped forward and pressed a soft, quick kiss to his cheek. Thank you, she whispered, stepping back immediately, shocked by her own boldness. For understanding, and for everything else. Owen looked stunned, his free hand rising to touch the spot where her lips had been. Then a slow smile spread across his face, transforming his features with a joy that made Karina's breath catch. I should go check on the children, she said, suddenly flustered by the intensity of his gaze. Of course. Owen released her hand reluctantly. Good night, Karina. As she hurried across the yard to the cottage, Karina could feel his eyes following her, and for the first time in months, perhaps years, allowed herself to imagine a future that included something for herself. A future that included Owen Garrett. The following Saturday afternoon, Karina was in the cottage kitchen preparing supper when Emily burst in, breathless with excitement. Mr. Garrett is coming up the road with a wagon, she announced, and it's full of furniture. Karina frowned, wiping her hands on her apron. What do you mean? Before Emily could explain, the twins and Sarah exploded through the door as well, all talking at once about tables and chairs and a rocking horse. Confused, Karina stepped outside to see for herself. Sure enough, Owen was driving a wagon piled high with what appeared to be household furnishings, a polished dining table with chairs, a bookcase, what looked like a rocking chair, and several other items covered with blankets. He pulled up in front of the cottage, grinning at Karina's bewildered expression. Afternoon, Miss James, he called cheerfully. Got a delivery for you. Owen, what is all this? Karina asked as she approached the wagon, the children dancing around her with barely contained enthusiasm. Well, Owen drawled, climbing down from the wagon seat. Mr. Collins and I were discussing how sparse the cottage is furnished, what with Mrs. Petersham taking some pieces with her when she left. And then I remembered the old Wilkinson place, the family moved to Oregon last month. Karina nodded, still confused. They couldn't take everything with them, left some good pieces behind that Mr. Collins acquired when he bought their parcel of land. Been sitting in the storage barn gathering dust. Owen gestured to the loaded wagon. Seemed a shame when they could be put to good use here. But Karina began, only to be interrupted by Sarah's squeal. A rocking horse. Look, Karina, a real rocking horse. The little girl was pointing to a wooden horse with a real horsehair mane that was indeed peeking out from beneath a blanket. And a bookshelf, Emily added, her eyes shining, for our books from the library. Karina was overwhelmed. The cottage, while comfortable, had been sparsely furnished with only the basics. These additions would transform it into a real home. Owen, this is too much, she protested weakly. Not at all, he countered, beginning to unload the wagon. They were just gathering dust. Besides, Mr. Collins insisted, said a family needs proper furnishings. The twins had already scrambled onto the wagon and were attempting to drag the rocking chair toward the edge. Whoa there, boys, Owen cautioned. Let me handle the heavy pieces, you can carry the smaller items. For the next hour, the cottage buzzed with activity as furniture was arranged and rearranged. The dining table and chairs replaced the wobbly old table in the kitchen. The rocking chair found a home by the fireplace in the sitting room. The bookshelf fit perfectly in the corner where Emily had been stacking their growing collection of borrowed books on the floor. The rocking horse, which Sarah immediately named Thunderbolt, was placed in the children's bedroom where all three younger siblings could enjoy it. There were other items too: a comfortable armchair, a small writing desk that Emily claimed immediately, even a set of china dishes wrapped carefully in straw. As the last piece was settled into place, Karina found herself standing beside Owen in the transformed sitting room, watching as the children explored their new home with delight. I don't know how to thank you, she said quietly. This means so much to them, to all of us." Owen shook his head. "Your faces are thanks enough." He hesitated, then added in a lower voice, "Though there is one thing you could do for me." "What's that?" Karina asked. "Have dinner with me tomorrow evening, just the two of us." Seeing her startled expression, he hastened to add, "In town, at the hotel restaurant. Proper and respectable. But the children, Emily is old enough to manage for a few hours, with Mr. Collins keeping an eye on things. I've already spoken to him about it." Owen's expression was hopeful. "Please, Karina, give me the chance to court you properly." The word court hung in the air between them, making his intentions unmistakable. Karina felt a flutter of both excitement and trepidation. A proper courtship meant acknowledging the feelings growing between them, taking a step toward a future she'd barely allowed herself to contemplate. "Yes," she heard herself say before doubt could take hold, "I'd like that very much." The smile that lit Owen's face was worth any lingering uncertainty. "I'll pick you up at 5, he said, his voice warm with promise. "Wear that blue dress if you have it, matches your eyes." Later that evening, after the children were asleep and Karina was alone in her room, she took out the blue dress Owen had mentioned, the same one she'd worn to their picnic. It was her best dress, though plain by fashionable standards. She smoothed the fabric thoughtfully, allowing herself to acknowledge the hope blossoming in her heart. A proper courtship, she whispered to herself, the words both thrilling and terrifying. After so many months of focusing solely on survival, on keeping her family together through desperate circumstances, the prospect of something for herself, something as personal and precious as love, seemed almost too much to grasp. Yet as she carefully hung the dress in preparation for tomorrow evening, Karina realized she was ready to try. Ready to open her heart to the possibility that her story might include not just sacrifice and duty, but joy and companionship as well. The following evening, Owen arrived precisely at 5, driving a freshly polished buggy rather than the usual ranch wagon. He had exchanged his work clothes for a dark suit, white shirt and string tie, and his hair was neatly combed beneath a clean black hat. The sight of him standing on the cottage porch, a small bouquet of wildflowers in his hand, made Karina's heart race. Emily, who had appointed herself lady's maid for the occasion, peered around Karina with unabashed curiosity. "You look beautiful," Owen said, his voice softening as he took in Karina's appearance. The blue dress had been hastily altered with Emily's help, the collar reworked and a bit of lace added to the cuffs. Her hair was arranged in a simple but elegant style with a few curls framing her face. "Thank you," Karina replied, accepting the flowers with a smile. "You look quite handsome yourself." Behind her, Emily made a small sound that might have been a suppressed giggle. Karina turned to give her sister a warning look. "We'll be fine," Emily assured her before she could voice the concern. "Sarah is helping Mr. Collins with his newspaper reading, and the twins promised to behave if I let them play checkers after supper. And you'll all be in bed by 9 o'clock sharp," Emily finished. "Go, Karina. Enjoy yourself for once." With a final list of instructions and a kiss for her sister, Karina allowed Owen to escort her to the buggy. As they drove toward town, the early evening sun bathed the landscape in golden light, and a sense of possibility seemed to hover in the air between them. The hotel restaurant in Nevada City was the finest establishment in town, with white tablecloths, polished silverware, and a menu that featured delicacies beyond the usual fare of frontier establishments. Heads turned as Owen escorted Karina to a table by the window, and she was acutely aware of curious glances and whispered comments. "Everyone's staring," she murmured as they were seated. Owen smiled reassuringly. "They're just admiring the prettiest woman in Montana," he said, his sincere tone making the compliment seem natural rather than excessive. The meal that followed was unlike anything Karina had experienced in years. The food was excellent tender roast beef, fresh vegetables, rolls still warm from the oven, but what she would remember most was the conversation. Away from the ranch and the children, with no chores or responsibilities pressing on them, they spoke of things they'd never discussed before. Owen told her of his childhood in Missouri, of losing his father and the kind rancher who had given his mother work. He spoke of his years of wandering, of the loneliness that had gradually grown until he'd almost forgotten what it was to belong somewhere. When Mr. Collins offered me the position at Silver Creek, I took it because the pay was good and I was tired of the trail, he admitted as they shared a slice of apple pie. Never expected to find a home there, or a reason to stay beyond the job itself. The implication was clear in his steady gaze, and Karina felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "And have you," she asked softly, "found a reason to stay?" "I believe I have," Owen replied, his hand moving across the table to cover hers. "The most compelling reason I can imagine." After dinner, they walked along Nevada City's Main Street in the gathering dusk. The town was quiet on a Sunday evening, most establishments closed, giving them a rare privacy despite being in public. "Tell me something you dream of," Owen said as they paused to look at the display in the dressmaker's window. "Something just for you, not for the children or anyone else." Karina considered the question seriously. "I used to dream of seeing the ocean," she said finally. "My father had a book with drawings of the sea. He grew up near the coast in North Carolina and told us stories about ships and waves and seashells. I always thought I'd go there someday." "You still could," Owen pointed out. "It's not an impossible journey," Karina smiled wistfully. "Perhaps someday when the children are grown." "And what else?" Owen prompted, guiding her to continue their walk. "Surely the ocean isn't your only dream." "I wanted to be a teacher once," she admitted, "before my parents died. I was good at school and my teacher said I had a gift for explaining things to others." Owen nodded thoughtfully. "I can see that in the way you work with Sarah on her letters. You're patient, clear, she's learning quickly under your guidance." The simple observation that he had noticed this about her, valued this aspect of her character, touched Karina deeply. For so long, her identity had been consumed by survival and responsibility. To be seen as an individual with talents and dreams of her own was a gift she hadn't realized how much she needed. They reached the end of the main street and turned back toward where the buggy was hitched. The stars were emerging in the darkening sky, and a cool breeze carried the scent of pine from the surrounding hills. "Karina," Owen said, stopping beneath the spreading branches of an old oak tree. "These past months, getting to know you and your family, have been the most meaningful of my life." Her heart quickened at his serious tone. "For us as well, Owen, you've changed everything for the better." "I want to continue doing that," he said earnestly, "not just helping with practical matters, but being part of your lives, part of your life in a deeper way." He took both her hands in his. "I'm asking permission to court you formally, with the intention of marriage if you'll have me." Though she had anticipated this moment since his invitation to dinner, the reality of it still took her breath away. Owen Garrett, this good, kind, steadfast man, wanted to build a future with her. "The children," she began, her first thought as always for her siblings. "Would be my children too," Owen finished without hesitation. "I already care for them, Karina. I would be honored to help raise them, to be a father to them if they'll accept me." Tears welled in Karina's eyes, not of sorrow but of overwhelming gratitude. "And you're certain? A ready-made family is a lot to take on." Owen's smile was gentle. "I've never been more certain of anything. I love you, Karina James, and I love those children as if they were my own already." The declaration, simple and heartfelt, broke the last of Karina's hesitation. "Then yes," she whispered, "yes to your courtship and yes to whatever future we build together." Owen's expression transformed with joy. Slowly, giving her time to withdraw if she wished, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers in a kiss that was tender and reverent. A promise of the love they would share when they parted, both a little breathless. Owen rested his forehead against hers. "I promise you won't regret this," he murmured. "I'll spend every day making sure of it." "I know," Karina replied, her heart fuller than she had believed possible 6 months ago when she'd stood desperate and ashamed in Donovan's store. "I believe you." The following weeks passed in a blur of happiness for Karina. Owen's courtship was everything a young woman might dream of, attentive without being overbearing, respectful yet romantic. He brought her wildflowers, took her on rides to beautiful spots around the ranch, and spent evenings on the cottage porch talking long after the children were asleep. More importantly, he continued to build relationships with her siblings. He taught the twins to ride properly on gentle ponies from the ranch stock. He helped Emily with her studies, bringing her books from his own collection and discussing them with genuine interest in her opinions. And he spent hours with Sarah in her garden, building a little fence to protect her flowers from rabbits and listening with endless patience to her chatter. Mr. Collins observed their blossoming relationship with undisguised approval. "About time that boy settled down," he commented to Karina as she served his breakfast one morning. "Been waiting for the right woman, I expect. Seems he's found her." By late September, with autumn painting the aspens gold and the first frost crisping the mornings, Owen approached Karina with a new proposal. "I've been thinking," he said as they sat on the cottage porch swing one evening, a quilt shared against the cooling air. "About the future, our future." "Have you now?" Karina teased gently, though her heart quickened at his serious tone. "The partnership with Mr. Collins includes the foreman's house, that little place on the east side of the property. It's been empty since the last foreman left, needs some fixing up, but it's a good house. 3 bedrooms upstairs, a proper parlor, big kitchen." He took her hand, running his thumb across her knuckles. "Plenty of room for a family to grow." Karina's breath caught. "Owen, are you asking you to marry me?" "Yes, I am." He shifted to face her directly. "I know we haven't courted long by some standards, but I've never been more certain of anything or anyone in my life. I love you, Karina James. I love your strength, your kindness, your devotion to your family. I love the way you face each day's challenges without complaint, the way you find joy in simple things, the sound of your laughter." His voice grew husky with emotion. "I want to build a life with you, raise these children with you, perhaps have more of our own someday. I want to wake up beside you each morning and thank God for bringing you into my life." Tears filled Karina's eyes as the beautiful, heartfelt words washed over her. "Owen," she whispered, her voice unsteady. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a delicate gold ring with a modest but brilliant diamond at its center. "It was my mother's," he explained. "The one thing of value my father left her. She gave it to me before she passed, told me to save it for the woman who captured my heart completely." He held it out to her, his expression hopeful yet vulnerable. "Will you marry me, Karina? Make me the happiest man in Montana?" For a moment, Karina could only stare at the ring, overwhelmed by the journey that had brought her to this moment. From the desperate young woman stealing bread to feed her siblings to here loved, valued, with a future full of promise stretching before her. "Yes," she said, her voice growing stronger as certainty filled her. "Yes, Owen, I will marry you." His face lit with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger, then drew her into his arms for a kiss that sealed their promise to each other. When they parted, both were smiling through tears. "When?" Owen asked, his hands still cradling her face. "How soon can you be my wife?" Karina laughed softly. "Eager are we to start our life together, absolutely." His smile was tender. "But we'll wait as long as you need. I want you to have the wedding you deserve." Karina thought for a moment. "November," she decided, "after harvest but before the worst winter weather. Just enough time to prepare, but not so long that we have to wait forever." "November it is," Owen agreed, sealing the decision with another kiss. The news of their engagement was met with jubilation from the children, even Emily, who pretended sophisticated indifference, but hugged Owen fiercely when she thought no one was looking. Mr. Collins insisted on hosting the wedding at the ranch and providing a generous cash gift to help the young couple establish their household. "Consider it an investment in Silver Creek's future," he told them gruffly when they tried to protest his generosity. "Need young blood to keep this place going after I'm gone." The weeks leading up to the wedding were filled with preparations. The foreman's house was cleaned, repaired, and painted, with new curtains sewn by Karina and Emily for every window. Furniture was purchased or repurposed from ranch storage, creating a comfortable and welcoming home. Karina's wedding dress was a community effort fabric purchased by Owen, pattern borrowed from the dressmaker in town, sewing completed with help from the women of Nevada City who had come to respect and admire the young woman who had overcome such adversity. The result was a creation of ivory satin with lace trim, simple but elegant, perfectly suited to its wearer. The wedding day dawned clear and crisp, the first week of November bringing a dusting of snow to the mountains but leaving the valley bathed in autumn sunlight. The ceremony was held in the ranch's main house, transformed for the occasion with evergreen boughs, late blooming chrysanthemums and ribbons in autumn hues. Emily, as maid of honor, wore a deep blue dress that made her look older than her 13 years. Sarah, as flower girl, scattered late rose petals from Mr. Collins' garden with solemn attention to her important duty. The twins, scrubbed clean and uncomfortable in new suits, fidgeted as they stood beside Mr. Rodriguez, who had agreed to be Owen's best man. Mr. Collins gave Karina away, his weathered face beaming with pride as he escorted her to where Owen waited, looking handsome and a little awestruck in his black suit. The local minister performed the ceremony, his words floating over Karina like a dream as she focused on Owen's face, on the love and promise in his eyes as he repeated his vows. I, Owen Garrett, take thee, Karina James, to be my wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death us do part, according to God's holy ordinance. And thereto I plight thee my troth. Her own voice was steady as she made the same promises, her heart so full she wondered that it didn't burst from her chest. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Owen's kiss was gentle but carried a promise of the passion they would soon share. The small gathering of ranch hands, townspeople, and neighbors erupted in applause as they turned to face their community as Mr. and Mrs. Garrett. The celebration that followed was joyous, a feast prepared by the women of Nevada City. Music provided by several ranch hands who played fiddle and guitar, dancing that continued well into the evening. Through it all, Owen kept Karina close, his pride and happiness evident in every glance, every touch, every whispered word between them. As twilight deepened, the children were escorted to the cottage where they would spend the night under Mrs. Hollister's supervision, allowing the newlyweds privacy in their new home. Emily hugged Karina fiercely before leaving. I'm so happy for you, she whispered. You deserve this after everything. When the last guest had departed and Mr. Collins had retired for the night with a knowing wink, Owen swept Karina into his arms. Mrs. Garrett, he said, his voice rich with love and promise, may I escort you to our home? I would like nothing better, Mr. Garrett, she replied, her heart overflowing with joy as he carried her across the threshold of the house that would witness their life together. Later, as moonlight streamed through the bedroom window, Karina lay in the circle of her husband's arms, marveling at the journey that had brought her here. From the desperate moment in Donovan's store with a stolen loaf of bread to this loved, secure, with a future brighter than she had dared to dream. What are you thinking about? Owen asked softly, his fingers tracing gentle patterns on her bare shoulder. How much my life has changed since the day we met, she answered honestly. How close I came to never knowing this happiness. Owen pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. I think we were meant to find each other, he said. All my wandering years, I was just making my way to you. And all my struggles were preparing me to recognize a good man when I found him, Karina replied, turning to kiss him properly. I love you, Owen Garrett, and I love you, Karina Garrett, now and always. As they drifted towards sleep in each other's arms, Karina's last waking thought was one of profound gratitude for the man beside her, for their family, for the home they would build together, and for the future that stretched before them, rich with promise. 5 years later, Karina stood on the porch of their expanded home, watching as Owen taught their 3-year-old son, Thomas, to sit on a gentle pony while his 5-year-old sister, Margaret, offered enthusiastic advice from atop her own mount. The spring sunshine glinted off Owen's hair, now touched with a few strands of silver at the temples, as he laughed at something their daughter said. The years had brought changes to Silver Creek Ranch. Mr. Collins had passed peacefully 2 winters ago, leaving the ranch to Owen as the majority partner, with provisions for the hands who had served him faithfully. Under Owen's management, the operation had expanded, introducing new breeding stock and modernizing many aspects of the business. The James siblings had flourished as well. Emily, now 18, was attending teachers' college in Helena, fulfilling her dream with Karina and Owen's enthusiastic support. The twins, at 13, were already skilled horsemen and showed promise as future ranchers. Sarah, at 10, remained their dreamer, dividing her time between her beloved garden and the stories she wrote in careful script. As for Karina herself, motherhood had added new dimensions to her already full life. Margaret, born a year after their wedding, had her father's dark hair and her mother's green eyes, along with a determination that both amused and exhausted her parents. Thomas, younger and more easygoing, was the image of Owen in miniature, right down to the dimple that appeared when he smiled. "Mama, look," Margaret called, urging her pony into a careful trot around the corral. "I'm riding all by myself." "I see you, darling," Karina called back, smiling at her daughter's pride. "Well done." Owen glanced up, catching Karina's eye with a smile that still made her heart skip after all these years. He said something to Margaret, then lifted Thomas from the pony and set him on the ground before making his way to the porch. Successful riding lesson. Karina asked as he joined her, slipping his arm around her waist. "Very, Maggie's a natural and Tommy's getting braver every day." Owen pressed a kiss to her temple. "How are you feeling?" Karina's hand moved to rest on the slight swell beneath her apron, their third child, due in the fall. "Wonderful," she said truthfully. "Much better than with Tommy." "Good." Owen's hand covered hers, warm and protective over their unborn child. "I was thinking we might take that trip this summer before the baby comes, the one we've talked about." Karina looked up at him in surprise. "To the ocean, but the ranch, Rodriguez can manage things for 2 weeks," Owen said. "Emily will be home from college. The children are old enough to travel." His expression grew tender. "You've waited long enough to see the sea, my love. I want to watch your face when you first glimpse it." Tears pricked Karina's eyes at the thoughtfulness of the gesture. "You remembered." "I remember everything you've ever told me about your dreams," Owen replied simply, "and I intend to help you fulfill every one I can." Karina leaned into his embrace, overwhelmed by the love that had only deepened with the passing years. "Do you ever think about that day in the store?" she asked softly. "When I was caught stealing bread," Owen's arms tightened around her. "Sometimes. Mostly I think about how close I came to not walking in at that moment, how different both our lives would have been." "Divine providence," Mrs. Hollister would say, Karina mused. "Whatever it was, I'm grateful for it every day," Owen said, turning her in his arms to face him. "For bringing me to you, for our family, for everything we've built together." As their children's laughter floated across the yard, as the life they had created together flourished around them, Karina rose on tiptoe to kiss her husband. "So am I," she whispered against his lips. "So very grateful." In that moment, surrounded by the love and security that had once seemed impossibly out of reach, Karina reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From a desperate young woman caught stealing bread to feed her siblings to the mistress of Silver Creek Ranch, mother, wife, and respected member of the community, it hadn't always been easy. There had been challenges, setbacks, moments of doubt. But through it all, Owen had been her partner, her support, her love. Together, they had created not just a home, but a legacy, one built on compassion, hard work, and the belief that sometimes a single act of kindness could change the course of a life forever. As Owen led her down the steps to join their children, Karina's heart was full. The past with its hardships had shaped her, but it was the present, this beautiful, blessed present, that defined her. And the future stretched before them, rich with promise, a tapestry they would continue to weave together for all the days to come.